What's going on, y'all? What's going on? Welcome back to another episode. I'm your boy, Swipa Cam. Welcome back, y'all. There's been so much happening, so much going on. Look, I hope y'all having a great day. It's Friday, and today is the day the Denver Nuggets are playing against the Golden State Warriors later tonight on ESPN. And it's going to be an absolutely incredible game. And I can't wait. I'm excited. I've been waiting on it. I've been looking forward to it. But you know what? We got to talk about something. We got to have a discussion really quick. So a lot of y'all know that I tend to get in, I wouldn't say back and forth, but I tend to get in situations on Twitter. And it's not because I'm trying to do anything. I'm just talking hoops. I'm just talking basketball. We just having discussions, right? So we're just having discussions about what's happening around the NBA, what's happening with the Denver Nuggets, yada, yada, yada. So here we go. So I'm on Twitter, and I'm talking about the Utah Jazz game. And so obviously everybody's getting on the Jazz for beating the Nuggets, and the Nuggets are fraudulent, and Jokic is the worst MVP, yada, 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 whoop-de-whoop. So as everybody knows, Nick Wright is a Denver Nuggets hater, and he is a Nikola Jokic hater. But what happened is that he ended up talking about Jokic getting smoked, as many other people did, versus Colin Sexton at the end of the game. Now, this is all without all the information about how the game actually went. This didn't bring up the fact that Nikola Jokic was absolutely going off, that he had 27 points, that he shot 11 of 14 from two, that he shot 1 of 3 from the three-point line, that he actually played good defense for most of the game, and that he was actually the best Nugget. And if the team lost by 21, he was a -5. So it wasn't as if he was getting cooked the entire game. But the way that people were talking about him, they were talking about him as if he was the sole reason that the Denver Nuggets took an L. So this is what happened. So if I pull up to the screen, you can see Hoop Reference, great content creator, but Hoop Reference is a Philadelphia 76ers fan. So Hoop Reference had retweeted this video, and I want to show you what's on it. All it is clips of Colin Sexton versus Nikola Jokic at the end of the game. And Colin Sexton is going to take Nikola Jokic off the dribble, and then you're going to see that right there. All it is a simple bucket. But as everybody knows, that whenever Nikola Jokic gets cooked on defense like this, people want to make this point that Nikola Jokic is unable to play defense at a high level, that he's physically unable to do it. So what happened is that I ended up responding to said tweet. What I did is I went ahead and I said that there aren't centers in the NBA that are doing what people think that they can do, meaning you don't have centers in the NBA that are just holistically just shutting down perimeter players on the perimeter. You don't see them just not letting people drive by them, all this other stuff. And so I brought up the fact that there are multiple players who have been burned in space multiple times. But then instead of doing that, first, I wanted to start off by talking about the things that Nikola Jokic did well, because people need to know. Again, y'all know I cover the team in and out. I watch every single game. I watch every single play. I watch basically every game multiple times as well. So it's not as if I just do this once and then I'm out. So what I did was I put up a tweet, and I basically just started talking about the great things that Jokic had done. And I said, Nick Wright narrative aside, because Nick Wright had basically been making fun of the fact that Jokic is the MVP, that Jokic is, quote unquote, the best player in the NBA, but he can't guard on defense. Look, very plain stats. You know, I brought up that these are Jokic's numbers and this and that, and it's two-man game. So Coach Carl jumps in and he asks, who is Nick Wright? He says, who is Nick Wright? And if you go to the other picture, so Nick Wright ended up screenshotting these photos. Coach Carl asks, who is Nick Wright? And I answer accurately that Nick Wright is a Denver sports hater who's been traumatized by John Elway, traumatized by Terrell Davis. He's been traumatized by Peyton Manning, and he has a clear bias for Denver sports. I think he's a great analyst, but the bias is clear. This is what he does. He's consistent about it. And so then Coach Carl says, The Kylo Ren looking guy. Well, obviously, if you haven't seen Star Wars, the ones that came out recently, Adam Driver plays Kylo Ren. And so there's always been this joke about the way Nick looks, all this other stuff, right? So you get the gist. So Nick Wright then subtweets with the screenshot both myself and Coach Carl by saying Nuggets fans and former coaches that underachieved massively when Denver was alienating their entire roster. Nuggets fans are really going through it after getting blown out by the worst team in the NBA, and you hate to see it. And so, again, number one, the Jazz are not the worst team in the NBA. As many of you all saw, the Jazz have a lot of talent on their roster. The Jazz have a lot of players on their roster. The Jazz have some good scorers, Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, just to name a few. So it's not as if the Jazz are just completely helpless. They actually have some good players on that roster, Malik Beasley and so forth. So what I then did is I commented on it. I said something about it. But what happened is that somebody played literally the next night. We had a game the exact next night. And so Joel Embiid, who is a quote-unquote known elite rim protector, a known elite defender, Joel Embiid ends up getting caught on an island, not with somebody who's super fast like Colin Sexton. He gets put on an island with a player like Jrue Holiday. And so what I did was I brought up the fact that every center in the NBA is more than likely getting bodied on the perimeter with the guard. That's just facts. This is not even pushing an agenda. As I've said, every center is getting blown by a guard on the perimeter, unless their name is Bam Adebayo, who basically is the best at it. Because he's 6'10", he's like uber elusive, all this stuff. And I said Embiid does his best to cover Jrue Holiday. This is legitimate. He does his best. But centers should not be on an island with the guard. And so here's the play. Jrue Holiday, he sizes up Joel Embiid, and it happens because this is what happens with centers when they're on the perimeter with the guard. He got blown by. He absolutely got blown by, and he hasn't been good defensively to start the year either. So Joel Embiid gets blown by. He gets beat. But the question that I have for you all, do you think the narrative was there that Embiid can't defend in playoffs against guards, and so therefore the 76ers will never win a championship? Do you think the narrative existed that the fact of the matter is that when bigs are on an island, that they're all most likely going to get blown by 9 of 10 times? But no, that's not what happened. People just let it go. They didn't say anything. So when I put this up, the only people that really responded to it were, as you would understand, Denver Nugget fans. Denver Nugget fans who understood that it's not just Jokic. Jokic has an issue in space. He lacks foot speed, all that other stuff. But the issue is there's this idea about Jokic based on the fact that the way he looks on the court, the fact that he's not the fastest player, that he is the only center that's getting beat. And again, Colin Sexton is faster than Jrue Holiday. Steph Curry, who people were getting on Jokic for not being on guard Steph Curry in space, Steph Curry also cooked him. And so people brought it up and said, well, this is an example why you can't have winning defense with him. But Embiid is getting caught in that same situation. So Nick Wright went on this rant talking about Jokic getting burned when the matter of the fact is that all bigs, all of them are getting burned by fast and elite perimeter guards. People bring up Damian Lillard, people bringing up Steph Curry versus Jokic, people bringing up all these different names. But the fact of the matter is that's what's going to happen when you have a big man guarding an elite guard in the NBA. And so here you go. I'm going to add somebody else to it. So Dan Greenberg, NBA writer, commentator, he said, I, for one, am shocked that the same people who clowned Jokic on the 19th, Nick Wright and many others, were nowhere to be found when it happened to Embiid on the 20th. Sarcasm, obviously, because all of the people who were clowning Jokic, that said he can't guard in space, that were making up excuses for why they'll never be able to win a championship, they were all fundamentally and categorically silent. Every single one of them. You see Embiid getting cooked by Jrue Holiday, nobody got nothing to say. No one has anything to say because it doesn't fit the what? It doesn't fit the narrative. It doesn't fit the narrative that Embiid is an elite defender and that he is categorically going to be better than Jokic across the board defensively. And that there's never going to be a time you're going to have to cover him for him like you will with Jokic. But if you lost Embiid the last 2 games, he's been bad defensively. But again, people are not bringing it up, and I brought it up again. Just to show you, just to highlight it, I brought it up again. That we have 2 different players, 1 day apart, with the same play result, but bias and agenda-driven narratives result in uninformed basketball opinions. No NBA center can consistently guard perimeter players that are threatening to drive to the basket outside of maybe Bam Adebayo. No NBA center can consistently guard perimeter players that are threatening to drive to the basket. But as I said to y'all, did you hear anything about this from the same people who are criticizing Jokic, Nick Wright and others? Of course not. Absolutely not. Because there's an agenda. And again, I want to also say this. I'm going to put this one up too, because again, some people were saying to me like, Cam, like, well, there are other centers that are better examples. You know, what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? Robert Williams for the Celtics, Al Horford for the Celtics. They would never let this happen to their defense. And so you already know what time it is. Y'all know exactly how I do things. I pulled a film. I want the film to show you. So here, Steph Curry in the NBA Finals, driving by Robert Williams with ease during the NBA Finals. And as I said, once again, no NBA center can consistently cover NBA guards on the perimeter other than maybe Bam Adebayo. So once again, are we seeing a trend? Are we seeing a trend? Are we seeing a trend? You've seen Jokic get cooked. Everybody has something to say. You see Joel Embiid gets cooked. No one has anything to say. You're watching Robert Williams, the same Steph Curry that cooked Jokic to the basket in the first round of the playoffs. When Jokic got dragged, you're seeing the same Robert Williams get dragged to the basket by the same player. But where was the narrative? Where was the narrative? Where was the storyline? Where were all the pundits and the analysts? Where were all the agenda setters? Where were all the narratives about Jokic's defense when it came to him in space? And where is that same narrative for Joel Embiid and for Robert Williams and Al Horford? Where is the narrative? Where is that conversation? Is not there. Because fundamentally, Nick Wright knows, he knows that bigs should not be on an island with NBA guards, especially all-star level or supremely athletic guards like Colin Sexton, like Drew Holiday, like Steph Curry. But do you think that the NBA media, the people that are criticizing Jokic, are going to bring any of this up? No, they are not. Because you know it doesn't fit the agenda. It just doesn't. So fundamentally, Nick Wright is creating a narrative. He's creating a conversation around Jokic that I told you, I fully, in my heart of heart, believe that it stems from the fact that he's from Kansas City, that he grew up watching John Elway and Terrell Davis just absolutely obliterate the Kansas City Chiefs in winning Super Bowls, and that he saw Peyton Manning doing the same thing from 2014 to 2015, and that he has planted his flag on the anti-Denver, anti-Jokic train because it's best for his brand, it's best for television, which is great. It's good television, absolutely. But he also knows that he is selling a narrative that he knows lazy thinking will allow you to believe. Lazy thinking will allow you to believe just the same way he had Luka Doncic on his number 20 overall ranking on the top 50 players in NBA history and left off Jokic. It's the same kind of thinking. So whenever you're hearing from Nick Wright, I just want you to keep this in mind, that this is the way that he works. This is how he moves. This is why he's telling this story, because he knows it will sell. He knows it will sell. And I'm going to add this once again. This is what Nick Wright had to say on October 19, when Jokic got beat by Colin Sexton, I watched this clip and I say the same thing you say sarcastically. The guy defending definitively, without question, is the best player in the league and deserves to be in the same club as Wilt Chamberlain, as Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Moses Malone, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, Steve Nash, LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Giannis Antetokounmpo as back-to-back MVPs. Because he doesn't believe that Jokic belongs in that category, the same way he doesn't believe Steve Nash belongs in that category. But the fact of the matter is he kept this energy for Jokic, but when it happened to Joel Embiid, he had nothing to say. And so when I said something about it, he wanted to try to say something publicly about it. But the same energy that he brings for Jokic needs to be applied to other NBA players that are bigs, other MVP level players like Embiid that he put above Jokic last year for 2 years in a row. He didn't have that same energy because at the end of the day, this is fully and utterly about narratives. And that's all it's about. That's all this has been about. There are people pushing narratives that don't actually believe what they're saying in real and true and authentic ways. And this is why we are in the situation we are in. We're having to have conversations about Nikola Jokic and his ability to play defense because people like this think that it's best to sell this conversation. And the best way to get people to buy in to the story you're telling is by continuing to say it over and over and over and over again. Thus, this is what you get. This is what you get. People believe in the same old lie that they've been believing about Jokic for years. The fact of the matter is, I'm telling y'all right now that Nikola Jokic will continue to hopefully get better on defense, will continue to be able to move better in space. But all bigs, every single one of them, struggle when it comes to defending guards that are fast, that are at an all-star level, and that have something to offer. With speed and with people that have narratives like this, it won't matter because they don't like Nikola Jokic. But it is what it is. You're right. Daniel's right. A title will do it. When Jokic wins a title, you can put all that stuff to rest because people have been bringing up those questions for years. But the fact of the matter is that, like I tell y'all, whenever you see people say this, when they bring up Jokic in his perimeter defense, bring up Embiid, bring up Robert Williams, bring up Giannis getting cooked by Luka, because you asked him what big can consistently guard on the perimeter. And that's the facts. I said something positive about Jokic. Nick Wright decided he wanted to get involved after slandering Jokic. And so we had a little back and forth on Twitter. And so that's why this conversation had to happen, because Jokic might not be great on the perimeter, but neither is Embiid, neither is Robert Williams. And here are plenty of examples you can see of them getting cooked. But I asked y'all, was that same energy applied to everybody else the way it was applied to Jokic? Absolutely not, y'all. So y'all know what time it is. Tonight, the Denver Nuggets are playing against the Golden State Warriors, and it's going to be an incredible game. We're going to have so many different people that are going off. They're going to be playing spectacular games, I'm hoping. We're going to see, hopefully, a dominant performance from Nikola Jokic, a dominant performance for the Denver Nuggets. I expect Steph Curry to go off as well. But y'all, it's going to be a great game, great bounce-back game, and we are looking forward to seeing what happens. Go ahead, like the video, subscribe to the channel, let people know where you heard, let people know who you're following, y'all. Hey, you know what time it is, Swipe the Game. Hey, we will catch y'all later, and we will see y'all soon. Wow.